Dear viewers, this is Tasleem Shakur. I'm an academic architect planner from Bangladesh, but lived for 40 years in England. And now I'm the editor of an international journal called Global Built Environment Review. Today I've come to Dhaka in Bangladesh, where I'm going to meet one of my legendary Professor Meer Mobassher Ali, who had the privilege of being with the architecture education in Bangladesh for the last 50 years, or maybe beyond, because he was born before that. So it's my great privilege, Professor Ali, to have you with me here. And I would like to gently bring you with your own background. That I know you've taught for 50 years, and I was one of your first students in 70, but I know your training and practice started before that. So please take us back to those days when you got trained as an architect or engineer, and then you started teaching. After you, sir.
Thank you very much. I am very happy that I have put so many attributes against my name. I wish I deserved all those qualities. But in any case, we started the architecture department here during 60 to 63 and went on and on for so long. And during this time, so I was born during Second World War, and during Second World War, end of the Second World War, say 1945, the Japanese came up to Burma, and so Chittagong and Bangladesh, present Bangladesh, was just on the verge of being attacked. So the British people did tremendous building activities. Few airports were built. Some of them are not still in use now, which was made for those wars and everything. And lot of changes have come from that time. Okay. So Dhaka, which was a provincial capital, has become a national capital now. And it has demand for various types of building and construction. Brisk construction went on because to convert a city into a national capital is a big deal, and it come on and on and on, and architects played a reasonably strong role in that. And at that time they thought that they will start a school in Bangladesh, architectural school in Bangladesh, and Dr. Rashid, the Vice Chancellor of that university, Buet, Bangladesh University of Engineering Technology, was very interested in opening the architecture department, and he almost persuaded me to study architecture. But so I got admitted in architecture, and he sent me abroad as soon as possible, me and a few others, to take responsibility from the American teachers who started the department.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, it's very interesting that you started Bangladesh, from Pakistan time to Bangladesh time, but you were also sent to America to get trained. And then when you came back, what was the scenario in Bangladesh, in Dhaka at that time? What was the urbanism and architecture, the scenario you started teaching?
In the 60s, architecture was not a popular name or a common name. People even didn't know what architecture is. Not only the men of the street, but even the educated people were not aware. And say if you ask somebody that if you want to build a building, who will you go first? Who will you go to first? And I'm sure none of them will ask, they will say that I'll go to an architect. But in the United States, if you ask a school child that if you want to build a building, who will you go to first? And he will be able to say that he will go to the architect for the first time.
Okay, so what were the main challenges faced when you rebranded architecture? Because I know you more or less were wheeled in from the Pakistani School of Architecture, which was also installed by the Americans. But being Bangladesh a new sovereign country in the early 70s, did you make any effort to take this challenge and start teaching quite differently than what you were taught?
Sure, we did. Because the independence was a result of a big struggle, and thousands of people, lakhs of people died. So it had an impact. and it gave a serious impetus to the people who suffered to build a new. Dhaka became the capital, as I have said, told before, and its population came to 1 crore, almost 1 crore, which is a big number. And to house them is the work of hundreds of architects. But as I said, that people were not very familiar with that. Gradually they started creating an impact. And now architects are in quite a happy position, and they are important citizens, and in the community they always play a leadership role. And people in Bangladesh, the civil society in Bangladesh, do pay the respect, and architects have earned it by doing good work. Because so when you look around and you see the different buildings, that you will see that it has the touch of an architect, and that is the reason for it also. Because in Dhaka, any building or any construction you want to do, it has to come through an architect. The architect's role must be there. Otherwise, it won't get approved by the national body or the.
I would like to know that, 50 years is quite long, and how do you see the development, transformation of architecture curriculum and practice in the country?
Architecture.
Is there any way you could say like the 70s was something and then 80s, 90s was different?
No, it's a continuous process. It didn't change radically, or it doesn't change radically. Because as the subject goes on, people try to improve on this, and sufficient improvements have been made. As I said, that architecture is a known profession, and it is well paid also, so people can earn a living, which is also the purpose of graduates. And the construction work that with the technology has developed. So, for example, before Bangladesh, your concrete was not that popular, was not used that much. But after Bangladesh, concrete became used, and then people were looking for the identity. Bangladesh, after becoming Bangladesh, the identity crisis was there. Right. So I keep on saying this, that first the Bangladesh, the identity, Bengali identity was depicted or played by the theatre, by the drama people. And the second best attempt was made by the architects. So the whole nature of the architecture changed, because you started seeing the brick building, exposed brick building. Exposed bricks became the hallmark of Bangladeshi architecture, and everybody did say we call it face brick, with face brick. And if you look carefully, face brick do give a good impression, and say people appreciate the architect's role.
I would like to ask you your foreign training itself, because you were trained first in America and then you went to England as well for your higher degrees. Did it have any impact in the curriculum setting in the country?
Yes, it did, because the American curriculum and British curriculum are very different. The way of teaching is different, and then we were not familiar with the American way. I always keep on telling this story, that one British teacher on his sabbatical leave came to the university. I was going to school in architecture, and we immediately felt familiar. Say his way of teaching, his process and all that. In America, you give yes, no answer and tick marks to get to do well or to pass the exams. But in British system, your essay type questions are asked, and then say creative things are asked.
But you did continue with that system, and what I was trying to get you, that did you make any difference with the change of a nation, and
America, their objective is to get qualified people or technical people as soon as possible. But the British system, say they wanted more the enhancement of knowledge, the depth of knowledge,
Okay.
and so
You were happy with that?
it is very different. No, since it was started with the American teachers, they almost identical curriculum as that of the Texas A&M,
Yes.
an American university, where from the Dean Vrooman came to start this school, and he used the syllabus right there, the American syllabus. So there was a adjustment difficulties a little bit, but with time we overcame that.
Because I was one of the person who was taught in the same system, and I still remember the design codes 330 or building materials were really, which were brought in from the American School of Architecture to Bangladesh, and that we were taught. So, whether good or bad is another question, but that is we were taught for the first 4 or 5 years in Bangladesh. But I wanted to know, are there any curriculum changes in the later? The reason I'm asking you this, because if you see in the 70s, there have been a lot of alternative or innovative theories were starting. Say Hassan Fatih in Egypt. He went abroad, but he started to get into appropriate architecture, appropriate technology, doing with the muds. Or if you see in South Asia, Laurie Baker or Jeffrey Bawa, they had the tropical architecture. Is there any kind of that trend which did take place in Bangladesh?
You have dropped name of few quite famous architects. In Bangladesh also, say, after it became independent, it became members of various international bodies. So when the big countries lost their colony, they formed different groups, the Commonwealth, SEATO, and organizations like this to keep their influence. And I keep on saying this, they call us third world country. I hate the term third world country. Why should it be third world, not the first world? Anyway, the architecture changed. Architecture changed quite a bit. Say here, Foster Wheeler did the steel mill Chittagong, and then Paul Rudolph did the university, Rajshahi, the agricultural university, and then Doxiadis did the
Student Center and BARD.
Yes, BARD, and also the Teacher Student Center at Dhaka University,
Yes.
which is quite a popular building.
Okay.
So many outside people, to top them all, the National Assembly was designed by Louis Kahn. But I can say that today, for the big projects, we wouldn't go to a foreign architect, because
Right.
our architecture school here is mature enough and well-versed enough. I would say that they have the talent enough to design any building.
Okay, you've just dropped the issue which I was about to come. But let me also phrase it this way, that you are also a product of modernist architecture. And what we see in Bangladesh is essentially modernist architecture by these big architects from the 70s. And is this the hallmark which has been kept so well inside that we are still continuing that?
Modernist architect, say there is a sub-architectural styles, say Gothic, Renaissance, and this like this. And the modern is also a style like that.
Okay.
And it started early to mid 60s.
Okay.
Early to it's 60s, and then modernist, I wouldn't say modernist. The modern architectural period is the lack of ornamentation. That they will do away with the ornamentation, form will follow function, and then they will say take the consideration of the technology that has been developed. So people became more understanding of the environment, of the use, and also of the materials. And they designed, I would say, the good buildings. So I think over-typified by saying modernist buildings. So today, a good building doesn't have to be a modernist by any count.
Okay, well, I was then coming to then, if you're saying that there are not only modern, but I don't see any regional architecture either. Is there any typical South Asian or Bangladeshi? Because we just got a good heritage of
Yes,
Mughal and then
it's a good
Hindu
question.
architecture.
It's a good question. Uh, say, architecture has become almost universal because of the new technology, because you find glass boxes anywhere in the world, or in every place in the world. So the influence of the region, or the regional influence, became gradually less because of similarity of functions. All are tall buildings, so the similarity of construction methods, and here, but there is a urge, or there is a drive among the architects, let me say the creative drive, to give the importance to the regional environment.
Okay.
Because say the environment have to have influence on the architecture. So influence up to that is all right. So as I said that in Bangladeshi architects use brick as an identification.
True.
But you could not do tall buildings with bricks or showing the face bricks. So they converted to concrete, fair face concrete. And fair face concrete and glass works very well. And this is the Bangladeshi architects have evolved. You don't find fair face brick and glass buildings very much in outside. But in Bangladesh, it is working wonderfully. So I must add that Bangladesh is good at creative thinking and creative doing. For example, different people from different region have different speciality or different talent. So I think Bangladeshi people have very special talent in doing creative work. Okay. So take the case of poetry. See, everybody in Bangladesh writes poetry. So it's a very creative work.
That's a very philosophical way of putting. So let me ask you your own research. One of your finest research publication is on the Louis Kant's, which was then second capital, and now we call the National Assembly. And I just wanted to know, I've read it thoroughly and I've enjoyed it very well, but I'd like to know from you and for the listeners, what did you get from there and how do you explain or analyze the whole building and its influence in the country?
National Assembly building is a very significant building. It is a significant building in the architectural scenario of the world. But there is many ifs and buts because say when he came during the time of Ayub Khan, he was a president and anarchist. And so this I have heard from various professors in America, that this is a representation of transcendental democracy. I don't quite understand the term, but say how it can be a transcendental democracy, it is difficult for me to find out. But even then, this building deserves many discussion. And this building, the students of the Department of Architecture, it was really an asset for them, that they could look at this building, see this building, go through this building, and understand architecture firsthand. Because our people or our student cannot go abroad that much, but then if they have a good example, this must help them. And so they almost idolize this building.
Okay. We'll be going for a break shortly, but before that, I must ask you one question relevant to this. Is in your book, which I liked very much, you didn't analyze the Louis Kant's architecture by itself, but you also looked in relation to the local architecture, the ancient architecture, the medieval architecture. So would you like to say something about that? That how did it relate to
Yes, yes. This again is a very good question, because as you mentioned, regional architecture, or so it must have an influence, and especially in a building like National Assembly, must have an influence of the heritage of the country. Now, people say that there is water around the building, and this is from the riverine country of Bangladesh. But to me, it seems a bit far-fetched. Just to bring water and say that is the riverine. And as a matter of fact, Louis Kahn was not very familiar with the Bangladesh environment. He has come only twice before he presented the drawings, preliminary drawings. He came only twice to Bangladesh. And then he was not very familiar. And for that matter, there was not enough experts to give him a elaborate program for the building. So many people liked it and many people didn't. So it's like there is a crown-like thing at the top, and one of the ministers of the then government said it's like a dome.
Okay. Sir, I think this requires far more sort of discussion. So let's take a quick break now and we'll come back and continue on that, if you don't mind.
I'd like that. I'd like that very much. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're taking a short break now, but we'll come back and discuss with the Louis Kahn's architecture in Bangladesh with Professor Meer Mobassher Ali. Thank you. Viewers, welcome back to this very important discussion with Professor Meer Mobassher Ali. We were discussing in the first half about his experience with Bangladesh architecture from the 70s. And one point we came to about the role of an important architect, Louis I. Kahn, and his important building, or one of the most celebrated building, is the National Assembly building. And I was discussing with Professor Ali that how did it impact on the country's sort of architectural schools and the styles. And he was telling me that sometimes probably he did not know the whole culture and the regional architecture so much, or the regional environment. So I'll come back to that, Ali sir, again. So just to come back with that issue, if I may say here, when Louis Kahn was doing this, there was also other architect like Corbusier. He was also doing, a few years ago, he did in
you have rightly said. As a matter of fact, 3 architects were chosen. It's also, the description is there in my book. 3 architects were chosen. One was Corbusier, one was Louis Kahn, and the other one was Alvar Aalto.
Alvar Aalto,
the Swedish architect.
Okay.
Now, Le Corbusier had some bad experience with the designing of the Chandigarh.
Yes.
So he didn't want to do it. Alvar Aalto thought he was too old, and for doing a big project like this. And Louis Kahn was working on a project like a city within a city. So the terminology was city within a city.
Yeah, that was his.
And he did some preliminaries of that also. And when these were shown on to the selectors who wanted to select the project,
right,
they were impressed by the preliminaries. Scandinavian countries, he's from the Scandinavian countries. They migrated to America. He was only a kid when they migrated to America.
Right. So you said that his approach may not have been appropriate for Pakistani architecture?
No, well, no. I'm saying that when Ayub Khan was asked that why he appointed a Jewish architect for this, he had a very prompt reply. He said, quality comes first.
Who said that? Is what
Ayub Khan said this.
Right.
That quality comes first. So I think this is wonderful, that the quality. And I think in this building has blessings of many. So after Bangladesh came to existence, then it was difficult to complete such a big building with air conditioning and maintenance and everything. Yes. But Bangladesh, with the backing of Bangladeshi architects, they built this building as it is without making any change. So this is, I think, a great contribution of the people of this country who has been influenced by the architects.
I'm glad you said that, sir, because my father-in-law, Abdul Wazid, who was the chief engineer at that time, he took the pride in doing the construction. He was telling me how they did that a high-rise building with a bamboo scaffolding,
Yes.
which is very high to build
Yes.
a building like that.
Yes. So you see on its body there are some lines. So you can
Yes.
cast up to this 3 feet 6 inches
Okay.
in a day with concrete. So he brought in a line, the construction joints like
Okay.
thing, and then filled it with the marble, which has added quality to the surface.
So can I come back to that one, sir? You were telling that he was not adequately briefed about the climate, and I don't know about the culture. So how do you see its appropriateness of a South Asia region? Because the same criticism is coming for Le Corbusier as well
Le
in
Corbusier
Chandigarh,
as well,
because
yes.
he designed huge plazas there,
Yes.
and there were no one on the plaza because they were all barefooted that time. So
Yes.
in that way, and like him as well, Le Corbusier also didn't want to come from Paris because it's too hot for him to come to Chandigarh. And I think same thing happened with Louis Kahn as well. They didn't come very often.
No,
be
he
there.
didn't come very often. But he had his office here. He had the staff who could give him the information and everything.
Okay.
So I don't think there is any inadequacy from that point of view. But after all, a foreigner is a foreigner. Because today, if I have to design anything, say another National Assembly building,
It will never
or
be like
it is not, we will not get a foreigner to bring it, to design it.
So would you say because there was no big architect, that's why they were brought in? Would that
No,
qualify?
no. I think that the maturity and the knowledge came gradually. So we now we're in other matters also, in politics also. The maturity takes time to come. The maturity, and you have to put the effort to gain that extent.
Again, sir, if I can add the name of Doxiades, this Greek architect who designed, as you know, in Islamabad as well. And I'm not sure he was also looking for this job or who didn't get shortlisted. But if you compare their job, I mean, how would you say Corbusier's, the Doxiades' work, like in TAC or what, compared to?
Doxiades got a very big project of the Education Ministry for designing schools and institutions and all that. He designed the Central Women's, the Home Economics College, and that's also a wonderful building with a tremendously nice scale for the small ladies of Bangladesh. So Doxiades in the process did a thorough investigation, environmental studies and all that. It was almost 20 volumes that gave all the information. And when I went to study in the United States, I could find all those information, even to work on them in my projects. But you don't find it anymore.
You're so right, sir, because
Anywhere.
recently I just found a book which has got all the work of Doxiades, and it shows his role of acoustics, how he inserted understanding the rainfall and all that in a different country. So you're bang on
Yes.
time there, yes. So if you consider now that these foreign architects who had an impact on South Asia, I'm not going to confine you only in Bangladesh, sir, because to me you are a South Asian veteran professor who have traveled abroad. If you see the work in Louis Kahn's work in Bangladesh compared with the Corbusier in Chandigarh and Doxiades in Pakistan, how do you say, do you not think that it has made a tremendous impact in the local architectural education and institution that we are all following them now?
No, I don't think so.
Go on, have your say then.
I don't think so. These are foreign architects who has worked. In architecture, is getting a commission, and
That's the
you
point.
do not choose a project. So if there is a project you like, you go for it, and try to get the job and do a good job. And so you mentioned a few names. Say it again.
Doxiades and Le Corbusier.
No. Okay, let us see that the architect of foreign architects.
If I can give you one other clue, because you mentioned in other discussion with me that these foreign architects were brought in, they were tied with the aid as well. So
with that, they were tied with
the consultants were more or less implied that they will be coming from those countries. Like I think the American aid money did come to Pakistan that time, under which Louis Khan was also brought in, wasn't it?
No, no. Louis Khan was it's a semi-competition. They were
Right.
invited, so they were invited to. As a matter of fact, Louis Khan first submitted the preliminaries, and that preliminary was appreciated. As a matter of fact, the mosque, which is axial, but then it is turned 15 degrees to see the Kaaba.
Yes.
And so it is not, say perfect rectangle or perfect square. So it is turned a little bit to face the Kaaba.
Yes.
And that makes it to me more vibrant than if it was more rigid.
Right.
And there are many added advantages when some advantages when a foreigner works, because most of the area are empty or vacant now. It has been only possible because it has been done by a foreign architect, and then nobody wanted to or had the courage to disturb it, and so the big free area exists in central Dhaka. That's wonderful.
But you were mentioning, please remind me of that thing you were telling me the other day, that some of the architects came with the aid money and they were tied with them, and I forgot.
Yeah. Some of the they needed a consultant.
Right.
So there has to be a consultant who is they thought competent to do.
Right.
And even though fees were higher, the reasonably famous names were chosen.
But this is what I was coming, that they were not necessarily the most appropriate, but because of the tied with the aid money, it was more or less a natural.
I wrote that, or I also mentioned that there was one architect who worked for the Burgess Company, a foreign company, Daniel C. Dunham.
Yes.
And he almost fell in love with Bangladesh or of this region, and then he convinced the USAID that
this was coming.
making a say school here will be cheaper than the fees that are given to the consultants.
Wow.
So,
This is a revelation.
and he convinced them to USAID to start the school. And as a matter of fact, we are product of that. USAID sent us to get architecture degree, and then come back and take the job of
But all the US
establishing
also brought
department.
with them the American teachers like Room and others to run the department too.
Yeah, for a very short while.
Right.
And I think it is to some extent was not very proper. We were just fresh graduates, and we were given by 1968. All of the foreigners were out, and we young people had the responsibility of building the department.
But I thought it was also an excellent opportunity for you. You're free from all prejudices. You can do whatever you want.
Yes, that's to some extent true, and I think we have done a good job, because the profession had been established by the grace of God and the good wishes of the BUET teachers and organization. We did a good job, and architecture department or architects are very well established in Bangladesh. The civil society of Bangladesh sees or looks at the architects with respect. As a matter of fact, they are I would say the best citizen of the community, because their objective is to improve the quality of life. So to improve the quality of life is a big word, and you have to go to all extent. For example, say now urbanization, I didn't talk anything about urbanization. I want to say forcefully one thing, that urbanization should be encouraged, because when people migrate, so there is a concentration of population. So if all the population gets spread over Bangladesh, you will have no land for cultivating or for food. So the density should increase in cities. And I think, but these people do not see that way. They think the cities should have more empty spaces, That is why the planning and architecture is necessary. They are the ones who can actually handle it properly. Otherwise, the whole country will be in a difficult situation, because the increase of population, they have to be accommodated. And how you want to accommodate them best, this problem has to be solved, and the architects are the right persons to be able to solve this.
So if I may bring the other debate about, we have inherited from the British primate cities of Bombay, Calcutta, Madras and Dhaka, which were the primate cities. And it is because of the capitalist mode of production which is British. Now if you go to Cuba, in Havana, there's a counter-migration because all investment was stopped. Unfortunately, that wasn't done in this part of the world. Or even China, forceful migration.
Yes.
So
yes.
this is why I said, is it because we only were exposed to one particular mode of production? So we became victim of that. Now there's nothing we can do about it. We will grow. Dhaka is now the 6th largest mega city in the world.
Yeah, and the population has been being rightly being utilized.
20 million today.
Yeah, people in about 2 crore or 20 million
20
people
million,
live in
yes.
Dhaka. And then, as a matter of fact, a rule or a law was passed that no residential building will be built below 4-story at the time of President Ziaur Rahman, that there will be less than 4 stories. Because say people were being forced or was being advised to go multi-story so that there can be proper density. I think Dhaka's density is less than city Bombay.
Yes, it
So
I think Dhaka is probably long.
we have some natural say bodies, say water body, canals, and different say bazaars and like that, to keep some empty area. And then I think I better mention it that here things grow very easily. So dispersal of seed, and from this green trees coming up, even in a very dense area also, you can see inkling of green, and that is wonderful. And the Bangladeshi architects have also coined the idea of green architecture. And so you can see some green beside, despite of being very dense. So
So let me bring you now the local scene. And we talked a lot about the foreign architecture. How about the local architecture? Now you have produced a number of architects since 71. And how do you define them, or how do you make a criticism of them at this stage?
local architects are doing an excellent job. They are really doing an excellent job, because
In which way, sir?
in many ways they are creative, and say some of them has got international prizes. You will be surprised that 4 or 5 prizes has been obtained. They have done exhibition in foreign countries. Some of the architects are getting commissions from outside also. This is one side of it. And then from another side, very recently the IIB president said that this is one profession where there is none is unemployed. So there is no unemployed architects. So there is enough employment, because as the city is increasing, Dhaka, the rate of increase is 7%, including migration and all that. 7% is about 1 million. So if it increases 1 million, so to house them, to school them, to feed them, and to do so many things, you need 50,000 architects. So the architects will, in near future also, as the population increases, there will be need for more architects. So architects do not go without job, because they can work on their own.
So at this point, I'd like to bring your own institution. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you and heartiest felicitations for your retirement after a very long time recently, and setting up this Meer Mobassher Ali Foundation, which has very recently, I understand, have done a wonderful workshop on 50 years of architecture. So please tell us about why you try to develop this institution. And
Thank you very much for asking this question, because say this is a think tank. This is a think tank, meaning that you deal with ideas. So people do not usually deal with ideas or give enough time for say new ideas to develop. And so I wanted to provide, or there should be a platform from where an architect or a professional can speak his mind without any fear or without any hesitation.
okay.
So there are some small things which need research, and so that we can promote the small scale research from this body, and then we can even give awards to, say, good teachers
Those
or
who've
great
done a good
teachers,
work.
and also for doing good work. And ultimately we want to go to some social welfare work also. Why not? There is such a poor country, so.
Okay, I'm told we have to take a short break again, sir. I will come back later on about the role of the local architects here.
Okay.
Thank you very much. You had been listening to Professor Ali, and he has been talking about his new institution, which is Meer Mobassher Ali Foundation, which is a think tank. And we will, next up, we will also talk about a recent workshop on 50 years of Bangladesh architecture. Thank you. Hello, welcome back again, the viewers. You are listening and watching Professor Ali, Meer Mobassher Ali, who to me is a legendary professor from South Asia in architecture, who has taught for 50 years and run the big university of the only Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology, and has taught for 50 years, very long, and made a very big impact in the local architectural establishment in institution building. So we are going to go back to him now to say, how does he see the future of architecture here? And is there any criticism or observation he has got on the current practices? So, Professor Ali, we have come back to you again, say it was the last quarter, to say, how do you see the local scene, local architecture? Would you remember or would like to name someone who you think has made impact? Or you were saying that how good the architects are. Is there anyone you would like to name particularly? Because I would.
No, I wouldn't, because if I say one name, there will be many others left.
You have been very diplomatic, sir.
I don't want to name.
Right. Okay.
But even things prove that, say, this time the president of Arcasia, the architectural institute of the region, is Bangladeshi architect.
Right.
So previously also, the Bangladeshi architects fared very well in the architectural communities.
Okay.
Now, you wanted to know about the future of the young architects. There is one shortcoming. Say, I think the most departments should have been opened in BUET, because now you do a building and the interior design is left. There is no interior designer in the country. As a matter of fact, interior designers also make a good living, and they also can make a thing presentable or make a thing interesting. And then, as I mentioned before, that anything in any seed that you put here or drops in the ground here, it becomes a tree or green, right? So there is not a single landscape architect department. There are few, one or two or three, who has graduated in landscape architecture abroad, but no effort has been made to start a department. I think a landscape architecture department should have been there, because now the role of landscape architecture has become very different. They are say more architects also. They together create the environment. Yes. So there is a famous saying that God made the land and architect made the environment. So it is assigned to Churchill, Winston Churchill. I don't know if he really said it, but say the creation of an environment. Yes. So I say that previously architecture was defined as big building, then architecture was defined as what I was saying, architecture was defined.
I would say, would you not accept that they're creating a production of a space? You know, nowadays these livable space is becoming quite popular now. You might do a good design, but how livable are those?
Yes, that's true. Say the form follows function. That means you are following the function you have designed.
Yes.
And function follows the form. That's also there. That if you design, say, in Bangladesh, the at the earlier times, monumentality was stressed. So the Louis Kahn building fits very well in creating a monumentality.
Okay.
But one is sometimes at conflict with the other. If the monumentality is there, it doesn't help the people to mix with the say the people who are making the laws, because it is very exclusive. So a National Assembly building should not be very exclusive. In this
Make it more accessible. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, if we can give the example of the National Assembly building in Sri Lanka. Jeffrey Bauer designed
Yes.
that, and that's a very friendly building. That's a very friendly building and quite pleasant also. This is more of a monumental building. He started with the idea of the city within a city. So this is also city within city. There are 9 levels.
It's almost like an ancient day citadel.
It's a 9 level, and there are only at 3 level that they are connected. So if you want to a level where there is no connected in the floor, so you have to walk like finding a street and then coming to this.
I would like to come back, sir, about the curriculum now as well, if I may, and the school. When you said the Buet architecture should have gone more diversified or extended other discipline, like landscape architecture, interior design, which I agree with you. On the other hand, there have been quite many private universities now, because when we studied, there was only one university, but now I think 25, 29
yes.
universities are there which teaches architecture. What is your say on that? You yourself have taught for a good 10 years in one of them.
Public or private universities
Yes.
are say they are in business, so they are more interested in getting more students rather than promoting the quality of students.
But that is very much with the Western world as well, sir.
No, private universities, I don't know. These are owned by big businessmen or rich people. So why big businessmen will be interested in education? So when I said that one teacher or one promoter of higher education said the name of Haji Muhammad Mohsin. Haji Muhammad Mohsin is a famous name in Bangladesh, and he used to give scholarship to students, especially Muslim students for studying. So I don't know if the entrepreneurs, I will call them entrepreneurs,
Right.
if entrepreneurs now are comparable to Haji Muhammad Mohsin. There are some good points, some bad points also. The good points are that in a private university, you can get things done very easily. You don't have to go through a bureaucratic process and red tape and all that. But in public university, it is very difficult to get something across. So people become reluctant to change. In public university also should open up their mind, so that, for example, that they do not open other department than the one after the perspective or after the line of Buet, because they think that they will not get jobs. Because now
But you just said employability is not a problem now. Everyone is getting job with architecture.
no, if it is he's an architect, he is getting a job.
Right. If it's interior
But
design,
say
he
if
may
you-
not.
No, not even interior design. If there is any specialization,
Right,
so
I'm
we
with you.
tell them. So we tell them to even say when a proposal is made, it goes to the UGC. UGC sent it to a teacher in the Buet for comments, and then I asked one of such commentator that why don't you specialization, say building construction, or say the selling of buildings, or they putting more economic factors in that. He said that why don't you do it yourself? If you change the name,
Right.
they will have difficult to get the job.
Okay. Sir, how about the curriculum then? Because we we discussed, as you said, we started with the American School of Architecture, and there was I don't know when did the curriculum change. The reason which I was asking, because when we were taught, I didn't learn much about the indigenous architecture or even the historical architecture much for the, say, Mughal time or the ancient period. I don't know what is being taught now. Are they knowing more about what we didn't know before?
I would say yes. The curriculum has been reviewed,
Revised.
and changed and revised.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, as a rule, you have to write every year that there is no change or there is this change, there is this change every year. So the university has a built-in system of getting something done, or so that it is good or it is well done. And say in private universities, it's not that much prevalent.
I see.
But the time is coming. I think that private universities will be able to compete with public universities. As I told you,
You mentioned that
yes,
some university, private university may catch up with the Bangladesh
they catch up
University
with the
engineering. And how about teaching outside Dhaka? There is a university now in Khulna, Rajshahi, and Chittagong too.
Yes, Khulna University has done quite well.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, job-wise, they are competing with BUET students.
Excellent.
And their services are comparable. And that has become old enough now. I think it's over 25 years that this is in existence. So Khulna University, and then the Khulna University has, I don't know the exact English term, is not that show-off.
They're not snobbish about it.
Snobbish or show-off.
Okay.
So if they are employed or they take an employment, they try to prove their worth.
Okay. If I may interject here, sir, I mean, maybe their curriculum is okay for teaching as a pedagogy for architecture. How about research, sir? Because somehow I have a feeling that
This is a good question. In our country, there is hardly any research university. BUET is one of the best universities, I would say best universities in the world. But the research opportunities are very limited because these are teaching universities. They go abroad, publish 2 papers, and then bring a degree and get the right promotions. But research is a must. And it has to be done according to the need of the country. Say there are building institutes, various in India or in other places, and we can look into it and then adopt some of the discoveries that they have done. We don't even do that. We follow the straight line and do whatever I am told to do.
And how about collaboration with the relevant discipline of urban planning? Are the architects
urban planning, this is a good question also. Urban planning did not flourish as much as architecture. It is flourishing now, since the intake from the engineering students.
Okay.
And they are good students and they will take it to some place. You will be glad to hear that recently a rule has been passed that in Upazila level, there has to be planner in every Upazila, which will create a big opportunity. But their job description I haven't seen, and it has not been defined, because planning is not a single person job. It's a teamwork.
Okay, so we are coming to the end of the program. I wish we could talk for hours, but I would like to have, is there any message you'd like to give to the local or the international community of architecture and beyond? Because as you said, you're such a veteran, and what is the message you'd like to give to the future generation of architects and the academics here?
The message I'd like to give that the architects who graduate or pass out, say they come to the university with certain ideas, and when they graduate, if they go back or go out with the same ideas, then we have failed in our purpose. We want to make him a complete person, complete in all sense, so that he becomes an ideal citizen and a useful citizen of the country. And I would like to tell them to keep their eyes open. You have to be very alert to be a successful architect. And you have to mix up with the community. You have to know the problems of the community and at least try to give a idea of how to solve them if you cannot solve yourself or if you do not get the commission to do anything like that. So be alert and try to make other people alert. This you can done by writing your feelings and go ahead. Just there is nothing to pull you back. So go ahead and keep trying, and I'm sure you will get someplace or you will reach your destination. The best way to succeed is work. There is only one thing that can make you successful is work, work and work. So my dear students and the listeners, work hard and do creative things. I'm sure Bangladesh will be a very livable country and Bangladesh will be one of the significant countries of the world in very near future.
Thank you very much, Professor Ali, for your wonderful interview. I'm sure you've enjoyed talking to us, but we have been really benefited with your profound experience and the way you talk to us so openly. And I would like to wish you a happy retirement. At the same time, as you said to us to work all the time, you yourself have embarked into another new institution building, which is your own Meer Mobassher Ali Foundation. I'm sure you will guide us very well to work with it. Thank you so much, sir. That comes an end to a wonderful interview with Professor Meer Mobassher Ali, who is one of the legendary South Asian architect academic, has just recently retired after 50 years of architectural teaching, profession of teaching and developing the curriculum. And now he's doing some more work with that. And I'm sure this will remain as a history to many of us. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you very much.